Sia Nagad. Hello, everyone. This is Cara Cowan Watts with Cherokee 411 with Cara, and we're here today with Thaddeus Strassberger. Thaddeus, where are you at right now?
I'm at my studio in London.
Oh, very good. Well, your mother is someone I know, Miss Gail Campbell in the Tulsa area, and she is extremely proud of you, and that's how I know about your career. So, you want to tell me about your mom and your Cherokee family real quick?
Well, I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and as you said, my mother and her mother going back on that side is where our Cherokee heritage comes from. And the everybody's grown up in Oklahoma for many generations. We go all the way back to Redbird Six Killer, who's quite famous um, for his participation in the Supreme Court and lots of things around there. So, and he has lots of descendants as well. So there's sort of a big group of us, and my mother has been very influential in sort of keeping track of everybody and keeping us all connected. So no matter how much I travel all the way around the world, I still definitely feel my roots are firmly in Oklahoma.
I love that. So, tell me a little bit about what you do and how you like what is it? What's the name of your job, or is there a job description? And like, how did you get into this? How did you come from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and end up in London as a
I,
Cherokee?
yeah, the job description that I have is one that you kind of make up for yourself. Um, in a way, because there's no sort of one pathway that you get to becoming an opera director. First of all, what is an opera director responsible for, and how does it work? Something I didn't know, obviously, when I grew up, but I was very lucky. Tulsa, especially in the 80s and 90s, had a really vibrant cultural community with the symphony and the ballet and the opera company. And I was just really lucky that my family was always interested in sort of taking advantage of whatever was available. It wasn't that we were particular opera fans, but we sort of went to see everything. And I remember when I was really young, about 8, 9, 10 years old, going to the theater and really enjoying that and thinking I wanted to do that, whatever that was. But I think I was drawn more to the set designs in the beginning because that's something as a kid that you can see that you could do. Directing is something else that I'm still figuring out what it is. But then when my parents took me to the opera, I thought, this is even more amazing. There's this great music and big casts and bigger stages. And really, I would say from like the age of 10 or 12, I kind of knew that I wanted to live in that world of the opera stage somehow. I was really lucky that my path was clear. But what does an opera director do? It's very similar to what a film director does, in that you are responsible for the entire overall creative approach to the stage production. So you work really closely with the music director or the conductor of the piece to shape the overall aesthetics of the piece. But the director is more responsible for the things that you see with the acting of the singers and with the choosing the time period that it will be set in, the costumes, the props, the lights, and the special effects, and all of that. And so it's sort of like this vision that brings everything together. In the end, the opera director is not on stage at all. It's really just a matter of sort of communicating and being the CEO of the production in a creative sense to bring everybody's sort of vision into a cohesive whole. So it's this kind of weird thing that doesn't really exist because in the end, a lot of people say, oh, do you go to all the performances and everything? No, because after the last dress rehearsal, my job is basically done because I've given it over to the cast and the crew that has to run the show. But yet your DNA is kind of all over the piece. So with opera, especially because we have these works oftentimes that are very old, that have 200-300 years old, that have been around and been done a lot, you sort of always finding new ways to look at the piece. And so it brings a lot of your own background and your way of storytelling and knowledge of art history and philosophy and world religions and acting technique and everything. You're sort of bringing all that together in order to tell stories that hopefully move people in a really interesting way.
Well, I want to say that was only the third or fourth time I've ever been to an opera in my life, and you moved me to go to Tulsa and buy a ticket and go. So do you want to talk about that production a little bit? Because it was drastically different than what it is typically portrayed as, correct? Like you took it into a different age, so to speak, but it was the same opera. And it was really cool.
Well, you can learn a lot about the preparations for the production by watching the documentary that's brilliantly produced by OCO TV, an amazing documentary series on the Cherokee diaspora, in a way, that all of us Cherokees that are around the world doing different things, and not just in the arts and culture, but also in science and engineering and athletics. It's an amazing series, but they followed me through the preparation of this production that I did for Tulsa Opera. And um, I wanted to Tulsa Opera. This is the title that we were doing was Zalame, which is based on a Bible story, and it's not even that familiar to a lot of people that maybe know the Bible, and it's kind of a rarity in the opera world as well, unless you're
Okay.
in Vienna or New York or London, where these things are done a lot more often. So I felt like I really could sort of start from scratch and just tell the story in the way that I wanted to tell the story. And part of what was important to me in coming back to Tulsa to do a show wasn't just the content of the show, of the opera itself, but in a way to involve the community, that we weren't just landing singers and conductors and directors from all over the world, but to how we're integrating with the local artistic community that's vibrant, that's there, and also with the music students of the high schools, and uh, there's local reenactment groups and hip hop dancers, and there's an Indian East Indian dance company there that's also based there, that has an amazing cultural background. And so I just wanted to find a kind of setting that we could bring all of these amazing things together. And I think that one of the exciting things about our contemporary culture is the diversity and our the different backgrounds that people bring to come together is really important to our modern society, and something that's worth celebrating. And so even though if we're doing an opera that was written in Vienna over 100 years ago, we're performing it now. So we have to sort of take the cultural things that are important to us in our community and bring them together. So to that end, because I wanted to be able to use all of these amazing resources and talents that were in town, it made sense to update it and to do it in a completely different way. And in this case, it's a very big opera. The huge orchestra normally of 100 people in the orchestra pit, and it's really big. But we sort of made it a little bit more intimate, and then put all of the action directly on stage, so that the singing wasn't even over the edge of the orchestra pit, but that people were singing really close, within a foot or two. Sometimes this amazing action. And it's not that we made the opera smaller. As a matter of fact, it was a big grand opera with lots of elements, and it was loud and flashy and sort of fully large scale. But we just created this kind of intimacy as well, which was really important to me, just to try to share as much of what my passion is about the art form with the community that raised me.
No, it really was incredible. I have two more questions before we end. What, how do we follow your career? What's next? And what would you leave with young Cherokee people that want to do something similar to what you're doing? How do they get in? What do they need to do?
Well, two things. So I work all over the world. It's been really my passport to the rest of the world this way, because it's a real privilege in our society. There's a lot of hardship and inflation and everything, and it's just hard to make money. And travel can be very expensive, but I also think that it's probably the most valuable thing that you can do, is to get out there and go. So I've been really lucky in this opera world, that because it's international, then people pay me to travel and go places. So I can go to China or Russia or Saudi Arabia or all over Europe, and somebody's paying for the hotel and the food and the airfare. So I think that's something that people underestimate in the arts, the opportunities that you have. So yes, it's not a get rich quick scheme to go into the arts. And I think a lot of people, when they're looking at careers, when they're in high school or sort of in college level, thinking about what to do, they're oftentimes advised, well, let's go for the sure thing, go for the STEM things, or programming, or uh, things that you can make money in. But I think that we can find value in our lives that go way beyond the dollars that you can earn. And I think that the arts offer some opportunities to do that. In my case, is the opportunity to travel around the world and to not only be as a tourist, but I go and I work really collaboratively with all of the singers and the technicians and the artisans that make the thing. And um, so that's something that I would say just an advantage to looking at the arts, to don't just consider things about what's my earning potential as far as income, but also what's my earning potential as far as happiness and interacting with other people and other cultures. And I think that coming from the Cherokee background is always a point of interest when I'm in these sort of faraway places. You know, everybody's met a New Yorker or met a Londoner, but not everybody's met a Cherokee that grew up in Tulsa with this background and these stories and the, you know, the food and the music and the the traditional ways and crafts and things, all of this. Everybody's always really interested in that, and I found that that's been like a real key. So it's in no way something that holds you back in any sense. You know, it's something that is always interesting. So how to get into it is I was actually really helped. There was even a scholarship program with the from the Cherokee Nation that I was able to take advantage of that gave me a scholarship that I was able to study, for example, in Germany at the Goethe Institute to learn German. It was part of a program to, a lot of times I think people think that the Cherokee programs are only about sort of bringing you into the traditional Cherokee things, but there was, at least in my time, there was a grant program available to help Cherokees go out and interact in other ways. In my case, it was learning German, which has been, I speak quite a few languages, and it was really helpful as a key thing in order to work in the German speaking world, that I speak German really well, and that was supported by the Cherokees. So I would say to really look for those opportunities of, you know, sort of platforms, a trampoline that can get you there. My work itself is, you can find me on my Instagram, which hopefully is in the link in this. Um, I'm always posting things both backstage and on stage and what I'm doing. And I also have a website, tstrassberger.com, where I'm posting the things that I'm working on. Luckily, with the internet, you know, it's easy to find. And also, I'm really lucky. I can thank my parents that I have a name that you type it into Google and you only get one if you put my name and opera director in. And my upcoming work is, so I'm based in London. I've lived in London for 15 years now, and before that I was in New York City. But I'm never really in one place a lot because I'm on site for each production for, depending, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks sometimes. But then I also have lots of trips for preparation beforehand. Right now I'm in London working in the studio preparing things for the upcoming season, which includes working in Belgium, in Liège. I'm doing a new production of Faust, which is opening the season there. And then I'm doing a very rare production at La Monnaie, which is one of the biggest opera houses in the world in Belgium, with an amazing world-class cast, and that's in January of next year. We work about a year and a half in advance, even 2, 3 years sometimes on these projects. And I not only do I do opera, but during the pandemic, when opera was completely shut down and there was no chance to be live on stage, everybody in my field was kind of looking for different opportunities. And I had the opportunity to work in Saudi Arabia directing. I was the creative director for a huge parade, multi-million-dollar budget, one night, drones, fireworks, fountains, a cast of over 1,000 people, Harley Davidsons. And so all of a sudden I took all of my operatic skills to put all of this into play. And because it was a big outdoor event, it was able to go on with, and we had an audience of over 500,000, yeah, 500,000 people, plus the broadcast audience. And then, so that group of people, it's a producer based in Italy that I started working with. I've continued to work with them on doing large scale ceremonies, oftentimes which are in the Middle East. You see things in Dubai and in Qatar and Saudi Arabia. But now, also through connections with those people, Milano Cortina is hosting the Winter Olympics 26, and I've been tapped to direct part of the closing ceremonies of the Winter Olympics 26, which will be held in Verona, ironically, in a big arena, which is it's from the Roman times, an ancient arena that was a sports arena, like just like the Colosseum in Rome, almost as big, and it's still in continuous use as a venue. And they've been doing opera there for over 100 years. So sort of my operatic background and mixing together with the sports and athletes and ceremonies world is going to give a big opportunity to see my work there as well, because there should be a broadcast audience of over 500 million people worldwide, all nations. Everybody watches the Olympics and the opening and closing ceremonies. So that's a way to meet new audiences and share a little bit about the way I approach the world and art and theater in a slightly different way.
Look, this is just incredible. And your mother is your number one fan. And I will tell her I'll start saving up now to carry her bags when we go to the Olympics to see your stuff in action.
Well, it's going to be in February in Italy outdoors. So I actually think watching it on a big screen, cozy indoors, is probably the best bet for watching that one. But you're all always welcome to come to the opera anytime. And if you happen to be in a city where I am and you see, be sure to just send me a private message on Instagram, and maybe you'll even get a backstage tour.
Oh my gosh, that would be incredible. Well, you have been so gracious about sharing your time today. And thank you for inspiring our next generation of artists that might think beyond what people typically think of as native art, that there's our Cherokee people are out doing these incredible things like you've done. And your production really was incredible. And you can probably tell that I'm an engineer. So this engineer, at least, normally opera is not on my list, but it was outstanding what I saw in Tulsa. And your mom's right. You're incredible, Thaddeus. So thank you again for being with us. Thanks everyone listening at Cherokee 411. And until we see you again.
Thank you very much.
Join the conversation. Discover stories and insights that matter to you. Subscribe to Cherokee 411 with Cara and stay connected with independent media, real, relevant, and unfiltered.